Welcome to this month's Shofur podcast. Each month we look at different topics that impact the transportation industry, as well as current trends in business, technology, and the arts. This week we are excited to be joined by Craig Miller, owner of Craig Miller Productions and the chair of the Georgia Film, Music, and Digital Entertainment Advisory Commission. Welcome, Craig.
Welcome, Mike.
And we are joined again by Amir Harris, founder and CEO of Shofur. Shofur is a technology company that makes it easier than ever for Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, schools, and film production companies to book charter transportation and get their people where they need to be. Amir, great to have you back.
Thank you for having me.
So,
we're talking about buses and how everybody got going here, how Shofur got going. It's a pretty interesting story.
Yeah. It's not some, and it's a 24/7 kind of thing. Everybody needs one all the time.
Right.
You know, and what we found is most people that are reserving a bus are doing it for the first time. So it's helpful to have trained agents that know what they're doing. They can coach somebody through that for the first time.
Did I tell you about my great story with a bus?
No.
I'll tell you my great bus story. I have one great bus story.
Okay.
Because we don't use buses that much. So I was working on a project for Coca-Cola. I was out of town. And the Katrina was coming into New Orleans at the same time. I got back to town safely, and I got a call from what was then Singular. They're now AT&T Wireless. And they said, we have got a gigantic problem, a PR problem. It says, when we designed the mobile services in Louisiana and Alabama and Mississippi, we put a lot of the towers in floodplains, and the power sources are at the bottom of the towers. And now Katrina's come ashore, it's wiping out everything all around it, but it's also flooding all of these areas. And our cell towers are going out when people need them most. And we need you to go down and document how we get all this back up. And I said, man, but everybody's coming out of Louisiana and Mississippi. We need to get in. So we said, the only way we can do that is if we have a bus. Well, needless to say, we're a little late to the party. CNN and Fox News and everybody else was picking up buses and taking their reporters to go in. Right. And we lucked out. So Gwen Stefani was on tour, and she'd gotten to Atlanta, but the storm stopped the tour. So her bus happened to be here. So we got Gwen Stefani's tour bus and a driver, and drove into New Orleans, which was, well, we couldn't get but so far. At some point, we had to get a boat, because I go back to New Orleans today and I can drive down the street like I'm coming in from the airport, and I always look up about 20 feet because that's where the water line was.
Wow.
When we were on that same street when Katrina hit. But it was just amazing that one bus was there for us to take a crew of 5 into Louisiana and cover the storm. So,
man,
it's pretty wild.
They had to move a lot of makeup out of the bus before you guys could get into the bus.
Exactly.
Right. And whatever else rock stars have on their buses.
Exactly.
Can you give us about an hour to unload some contraband out of the bus, please?
Yes, please.
Right. Yes, sir. You may use our bus. Didn't we book a ton of buses for Katrina?
We booked a ton for Hurricane Matthews.
Oh, yeah.
Last year.
I can see how that works.
We evacuated over 10,000 people out of the coastal lines.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and it was all done within 24 hours.
It's amazing how when storms or acts of God, those kind of events happen, that folks that you don't usually assume would be involved in helping people out just are on the spot and are ready to help folks that are in need and get them to safety. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So, Craig, in 2012, the state of Georgia's tax credit system for film productions gives out-of-town producers. We were talking about this before.
You want me to tell you
episode.
about that, Michael?
The
year was 2008.
Right.
Okay. It's the Georgia Entertainment Industry Investment Act, which basically gives you up to 30% of a tax credit for productions that are shot in the state of Georgia. It's been extremely successful.
And what is it? But that's a big credit back. What is in it for Georgia?
Jobs. That's the number one thing. That's what we care about more than anything else, is putting Georgians to work. Initially, there was a bit of a challenge because Whereas we had been able to maintain a core base of crew and technicians to be able to do projects. And we had a core base of what we call in the industry above the line folks, producers, directors, writers, that kind of stuff. Yeah, we could handle 2 or 3 films, 2 or 3 feature films if they came to town. Well, all of a sudden, we're dealing with, like today there are 45 movies or TV shows shooting in Georgia as we speak. So
That's incredible.
To get that depth, we had to educate people, and we had to get them to work quickly. And we worked greatly with the We worked greatly with the IATSE union. 479 is the local chapter, which had roughly.
I'm sorry, the Yahtzee union? The Yahtzee is a game. I'm confused.
Yahtzee. IATSE.
It's something else.
They're the technicians, yes. And they had about 900 members back in 08. Now they've got over 4,000. They're now one of the largest locals for IATSE in the world.
Right. And is that complicated because Georgia is a right-to-work state? Georgia, I know, is a musician, right? AFM is the musicians' version of the union. Doesn't have a lot of teeth here in the state of Georgia.
The unions, IATSE and well, face it, when you make a movie, you're going to be involved with unions, unless you're an extremely low independent production. And you want the union work because they're union workers, because they're trained to do the job that needs to be done. They're going to do it safely, and they have a particular craft that they are all involved with, whether it's makeup or props or interior design or whatever, that they are specialized in and can make that job work really well for you in your production. What the right to work part of the thing is, you can still, if you're a non-union person, work on a union project and actually get your hours toward joining the union. But you cannot use union workers on a regular feature film and not be hiring them through the union.
Right.
So
Right.
that's how we get really quality people. They have their own educational program as well, where they train people to be on crews and to work in Georgia. So it really works very well.
Well, sir, yeah, sure. Because if I'm a producer based in California, where unions do have a strong presence, I'm going to be familiar with that happening here in Atlanta.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
Right. I don't care about Georgia and how its differences. I want it to work the way that I'm used to it working.
Yes.
Yeah. So the governor appointed you as the chair of his Film, Music, and Digital Entertainment Advisory Commission in 2015.
Right.
Did I got that right?
You got that right.
Okay. So what has that been like? I've known you for 20 years, but I have not had a good conversation with you about this. What is that like?
Well, first of all, it was a great honor. I thought this is really cool. I've worked at the business and always tried to up the game of my company, Craig Miller Productions, all along the way, and play to the higher end of the market. So this was really, really quality. It was really just an honor. I just can't put it any other way. It was like, wow, somebody recognized that I really worked hard. And not only do I work hard to make my productions work well, but I also work hard to bring up everybody with me and keep them engaged and involved and trying to do a better production than the last production we did. So it was great. The other really nice thing is that this advisory commission is made up of people from the industry. So it really is a higher end group of lawyers, of technicians, of studio owners, of folks that really make a difference and really understand what's going on in the business. So if the governor has a question, we can answer it quickly. If we need to discuss something that's projected as a potential challenge to the industry in the future, we can look at it fairly and reasonably and make sure that we maintain not only the incentive, but also maintain Georgians getting educated and being hired on these jobs and growing the business.
And I can certainly understand the governor's, one of the reasons to do this is because I would imagine that a politician would sometimes have trouble getting something through that is hard to explain or complicated. It's not hard to explain the next Avengers movie is being filmed here. And
Right.
that's because, that's something that everybody knows. And everybody does know about this. You can go anywhere. You can go to any restaurant here within a mile of here. We're sitting here in Buckhead, and everybody's going to know, they're shooting all these movies here.
Right. It's very exciting.
It is. It is. So, Armir, have we seen any kind of increase? I mean, have we felt the impact of this here with our activities, or?
Yeah, we've certainly felt it. There's actually a lot of film tours going on around Atlanta. It seems to be a little seasonal, but we've seen a great increase in that. And when I first moved the business to Georgia, I didn't see much of that. So I've certainly felt it there. And we have had a slight increase in bookings of entertainer buses, which has been pretty cool. Yeah, so we've definitely felt the benefits of that.
I know you and I had a call with one of our vendors about a week ago, and that guy was really starstruck about the Walking Dead thing. He just couldn't, he was a little flustered. He was like, so you guys are there, right? Do you see zombies? Have you been to this place? Have you been to that place? And,
but that's a really interesting aspect of the industry, because it tends to, when you're talking about the industry, it's like that conversation, like that statement you just made. Oh, everybody knows Avengers is shooting in town. And certainly while Avengers or any of the Marvel comics or any of the big feature films are here, there's this immediate economic impact of people being put to work. They're the people directly working on the movie, but then there are hotel rooms and there are caterers and there are makeup people, and there's this whole ancillary bit of business that's going on in connection with the film. But then after the film packs up and leaves, it's like there's this tourism business that's all of a sudden growing. The classic story is always about Dukes of Hazzard. So back in the 80s, there were 5 episodes of Dukes of Hazzard shot in Covington, Georgia. Today, they still are generating about 70% of their tourism business off of those 5 episodes that were shot,
Wait, there's a
30 years.
tour to go see Dukes of Hazzard?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah.
I'm writing that down.
And you can get, I heard the other day, I think they've even got a Daisy Dukes drink that you can buy on the square, and sort of relish in those days of not only Dukes of Hazzard, but Heat of the Night.
Oh, man. Heat of the Night, and that was in full
That was
swing.
there for several years.
Gosh,
yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I remember the cars jumping when I was a kid. It was the coolest thing ever.
And then you've got Vampire Diaries there that's just wrapped up. So they've just wrapped up several seasons of shooting for in the Covington area.
Because the tax incentive, if I did my homework correctly here, part of the reason it's a tax credit is to incentivize me, the LA producer, to do my next season in Georgia, right? Because I can apply the credits to my next season.
Well,
Am
yeah, let's see. You know that you can certainly use your tax credits that you've been awarded as credits against the taxes that you may see coming in the next year.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So you could do that. Yes.
Right.
And you hope that it's an ongoing thing. We like both movies and TV shows, but TV shows shoot for a little longer period of time because they're usually making somewhere between 10 and 13 episodes each. So it takes them a longer time than to shoot a feature film, which is usually going to take about 6 weeks.
And post-production is not always staying here, I assume. I assume that, has the post-production been tracking or growing along with production? I'm not sure it would be, because people are going to shoot and not necessarily do it here.
Exactly. It's very interesting. The thing that we're trying, the next step, the next era of growing the industry is to really grow the post-production industry here in Georgia. Right now, most of our projects, there are a few that are spring up here in Georgia, like Tyler Perry Studios. They create all their content at Tyler Perry Studios, and they post-produce all their work, or a lot of their work there. But you look at people that are like the Avengers. They're going to come in, they're going to shoot what they shoot here, but they've been away from home for a couple of months now. Those ideas are coming out of Los Angeles or New York or somewhere else. And they're going back to home to sit with the editor and watch what's going on and be up close and personal with everything. what we need, what we are working to develop right now is this next level of Georgians that are creating their own content and making things work here in Georgia. And in so doing, what will happen is, well, people are home, so they'll stay here and post produce. And right now the legislature realized that, and they passed a bill in this past legislative session, House Bill 199, which basically gives a tax credit, a new tax credit, to a post-production house that does post-production on a movie or TV show that is shot anywhere, but their post-production is done in Georgia. So on the original Entertainment Industry Investment Act, it said you have to shoot in Georgia and you have to post-produce in Georgia. And you would get the credit for not only the production, but for the post-production.
Right.
This new added thing is meant to grow the post-production industry. So if you open a new shop, especially if it's in a rural county and it does a certain amount of business, it's got to be a legitimate, it's got to be a legitimate company, then you work on any of these projects that are shot anywhere in the world, but they've come here to do their post-production, the post-production house can get 20% tax credit on the work they're doing.
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even have, it's not necessarily even connected to Hollywood.
No.
Oh.
It could be coming in from South Africa
Right.
or France or wherever.
Right. That's very interesting. See, the post-production matters to me because I'm a musician.
That's right.
Right. You and I worked together a million years ago, and post-production was my thing with the music, but I can see how, a Hollywood producer, once they get done shooting at Tyler Perry Pinewood Studios, they want to go home. Yeah, I get that.
And the legislature also showed a little love for the music industry this year by putting in a little incentive for music. So if you start, now this would, because you're going to ride a bus to do this, you got a national tour. If you prep for your national tour and start it here in Georgia, there's a music incentive that'll kick in for you that you can take advantage of. So get that national tour put together, do it here in Georgia, and then take off and make money.
Because they do, when they prepare for tours, they got to set up somewhere and test out all the lights and get all the songs together, like that Michael Jackson documentary, This Is It.
Yeah.
Amazing, right? That was months of prep for that show that was going to be in London, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. So I went to college at UCLA in Los Angeles, and when I was going to school there, I would see all these, yellow film signs on the streets,
Exactly.
right, or the post lights. But I didn't see them much in Atlanta, but recently, past year or so, I've seen a lot of them pop up, which I think speaks volume. But where do you think the film industry is headed? What do you think the future of film industry is like, an entertainment industry in Atlanta?
Well, I think the interesting thing is about the media.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll show my age. When I was a kid, I had 3 TV channels that I could watch: ABC, CBS, and NBC.
Not Fox? I'm sorry.
No
what?
Fox. No Fox. That came later. And then, today with everything from YouTube to Netflix to Amazon producing their own content, I heard a report the other day that in 2010 there were only 4 series like we see on Netflix today, little short, Man in the Tide Tower or House of Cards, those kind of programs produced. Last year, between January and June, there were 425 little series like that created. Well, who's creating them? We want it to be Georgians. So Netflix is here, and we've seen Amazon here, and Stranger Things is shot in here in Georgia.
Right. My kid loves that show.
Yeah, and we are just we can't fill up the content buckets. So more and more is happening. The other thing that I see in Georgia is the independent filmmaker. You didn't have much of that over the last 30 or 40 years. People that are spending somewhere between $1 million and $15 million to produce a movie. Okay, if something was here in town, it was probably a $20 million project or bigger. Well, now you've got a lot of young people who not only are looking for ways to tell their stories, but they've got it's so much less expensive to do it these days than it was 30 years ago. So you're seeing this generation of younger people and some old guys like me that are finally into the business of entertainment and making those kind of projects work for their companies or even for their own art's sake,
Right.
And so that content has greatly developed, and their markets like Europe and Asia and China and all of these places that are just dying for any kind of content. So it's really smart to know exactly what kind of content they're looking for, because it helps you to raise your money for investors and things like that.
Right.
But at the same time, there's so many people looking for it. It's just incredible. And so we've produced, my company has always done commercials and high-end corporate work for like Fortune 500s.
Right.
That's been our niche in the marketplace. Last year we did a feature film. We produced.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We produced a TV pilot, which looks like it's getting picked up, so that's
Congratulations.
good. We have signed a movie this year that we know we're shooting in the fall. We have 4 movies we're talking about this summer, because you better keep a lot of movies in the churn.
And this is Craig Miller Productions.
This is just me. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
exactly. So
Wow.
it's been a great year. We're going to need some buses.
Right.
I think I know where we can get them.
That's
Right.
good.
That's amazing. Dude, that is amazing, because you and I have known each other a long time, and I remember the days when you and I would do projects together. You were my favorite client, and we would the feature films were there wasn't a lot. It was slim pickings,
Oh yeah.
and if something came along, we were all over it. And there just wasn't much going on. So to hear this growth, it's amazing.
It's incredible.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So they figure that now there are over 80,000 Georgians employed in the industry. If a movie comes to town, usually a little over 5% of the people that came from wherever the movie came from originally stay here, buy a house, and become a Georgian.
What?
Yeah, and we have a $7.2 billion economic impact on the state of Georgia. It's incredible.
Wow, that's a lot.
New numbers coming out because state runs a fiscal year from July to June. So we'll have new numbers out, probably calculated and everything, by the 1st of August. So that'll be great.
So the tax incentives certainly helped Georgia's
Yes.
economy. Touching on Amazon and Netflix, these are tech companies that are disrupting the entertainment industry a lot,
Exactly.
right? And I'm pretty bullish on tech companies in general. So Silicon Valley wasn't always in Silicon Valley, right? Before it used to actually be in Boston, because MIT and Harvard was there, right? And the best brains of the world were there. And then it moved to San Francisco because they had tax incentives there, right? And now you're seeing New York with tax incentives, right? If a tech company moves to New York, they don't have any state tax for 10 years,
Right.
which is huge, especially for a tech startup, right? How do you think we can start an initiative to help grow tech companies in Atlanta and the tech industry in Atlanta overall?
So the technology group is really, really interesting. One, I think in growing that kind of business in Georgia, there are a couple of things going on. First of all, there are incubators. And I think incubators are a key way to get young, new ideas and lots of people interacting amongst each other. Tech Village up here, Georgia Tech's got an incubator platform as well that's even working in the entertainment industry.
Or Ehrlich's House, like on Silicon Valley. I love that TV show.
Exactly.
Right.
So I think giving young people with these great ideas like yourself that feel like they can manage and maintain and grow an industry and test it out before they really get out there and spend a lot of money doing it, I think is a key aspect of how we're going to grow the industry in Georgia. Fintech industries have been, we have a name for it. What's the name they call it? It's not Silicon Valley is California. They call it, I can't remember now.
Where's Vintech?
Fintech is the financial. Yeah, so it's like all the credit cards. We process here in Georgia 70% of all credit cards that are used in the world.
First Data and WorldPay, they're here.
Exactly.
Yeah, First Data is the
I heard that.
processor,
Yeah. Synovus. I mean, they're huge companies that are processing all these monetary transactions that are just done in plastic. So I think tapping into the fact that we have a well-established industry here in Georgia, that I think that helps grow the business. And I see folks like the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce and the Georgia Chamber and folks like that tapping into other parts of the state, because those kind of companies don't have to be here in Atlanta. They can be elsewhere. And obviously one of the things that the state legislature would like to do is spread the wealth. They don't want this Atlanta and everybody else kind of situation.
Right.
They would like to see growth all over the state. And these are basically, tech innovators that are trying to build up and grow their industries. And I just feel like that's a key aspect of building that kind of market here in town. I also think it helps that we have so many good colleges here.
Yeah.
You got Emory, you got Georgia Tech, you got University of Georgia, you got Georgia
State right here in the studio in the booth.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but I think all of that generates a kind of interesting hub for young folks that are in the business. So I think that's good. We like that. We like the movie industry likes that too, for the same reason, that there's a lot of technology involved with, and new media involved with what we're doing in making movies. And so we would like to see those young people, instead of picking up and moving to Los Angeles because they think they have to do a movie career there, being here.
Correct.
Because we used to see that a lot. We used to see
that we still do.
Right. Right. Where I remember you and I, we would do videos, and if an actor was just phenomenal, then eventually they would be gone. They would go to LA. Right.
They'd have a couple of days, and that would be it. Yeah.
Right.
A couple of years.
John L., you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I actually had a question.
Absolutely. So this is John L. He's on our content team. Here, come on in.
Share in. Share the love.
Yeah. So just really caught my attention what you said about trying to get college students a little bit more acclimated, especially in the Atlanta area.
Sure.
Because I know for me, at Georgia State, I recently graduated a few years ago, and I minored in film production. And I know a big struggle for a lot of us, a lot of the students that are kind of in that lane, was there wasn't really much bridging the gap between like independent creatives trying to make something and the actual companies here. So the issue we would often have was, we would all kind of have to just work independently. We'd have to come together after class, make our own stuff. And we kind of would do this in the hopes of by the time we graduated, there would just be like this magical just job waiting on us. Like you get your degree, you do your internship with like maybe GPB or something, and then you're out there in the real world and you're kind of just on your own. All these film companies, in a way it's kind of like carpetbagging, they come from LA or New York, they bring their whole crew with them, come here for a month or 2, 3 months, and then leave. And then it's kind of like, well, there's thousands of people with the same skill set here that are hungry, that want to do this, that are ambitious, that work twice as hard. But, a lot of us come into college with these expectations as film students, and then you're kind of just out there on your own. And the only real way it seems to make a dent is if you get your own financing, you do like your GoFundMe, you raise your money, produce your own thing, and maybe in hopes of like a film festival picking you up or something like that. That's the only way it seems to kind of like make your mark. Is there any way around that, or any advice you have for like?
There is a way around this, and it doesn't cost you any money, which is amazing. We call that getting through the wall. Yeah. So if you can't get through, it's great. You got all these degrees, you've got a movie you've demoed in your trailer or something, and you're trying to get picked up. You say, well, how do I get on set? How do I get through the wall to get the job? And the governor of Georgia has created a way. So he created a workforce initiative plan, and it covers several industries, but one of the industries that it covers is filmmaking. And the Georgia Film Academy was formed. The Georgia Film Academy is a 2-semester course. So it's not expensive if you did have to pay for it. It's properly it has a proper tuition that is affordable, but because it's part of the workforce initiative, if you fill out the right paperwork and do all that kind of stuff, you can go to school for free. The way it works is this way. They are virtual. So they can be on any campus, any University of Georgia system campus, or they can be at any technical college in the Georgia system. And they just have to have enough interest from students to be a part of this. And the way it works is that you go to there's 2 semesters. It's a certificate program, not a diploma program, but the Hope Scholarship applies as well. The first course you take is sort of like getting introduced to the industry. We have a way of talking in the industry about equipment and about how to do the job and how we communicate. And so it sort of gives you that level of hands-on, technical kind of get used to the industry and sort of see whether you like it or not. Because a lot of the industry is a lot of hard work. It's 14-hour days, and it's those kind of things. Are you prepared for this? Also gives you an OSHA training program so that you're safe. But the real gem of this program is the fact that on the second semester, you are actually interning on a real feature film.
That's cool.
Yeah, so you are working on Avengers, you are working on Walking Dead, you are working on projects for Adult Swim. And they have agreements with all of these productions, lots of these productions, all over the state, because they have classes in Savannah and in Columbus as well, where they train these students as interns. You get paid, which is a great thing. It's minimum wage or thereabouts, but you get paid. You're limited to how many hours you can work every day. But at the end of this period, the end of the second semester, you have 2 things going for you. You've met a bunch of people that you would have never met if you hadn't gotten through the wall. So do a good job, work your craft, kind of figure out where you want to be, and you've got connections in the industry to make it work. To go back and say, hey, Bob, remember me? We did the, yeah. Oh, you were great. You're on, The second thing is it gives you enough skill set to put you, if not ready to, very close to be ready to receive to be able to apply for your union card. And that is what that's what really puts you to work. Yeah, you're through the wall. And that's incredible. Now, it's still emerging. The Georgia Film Academy's only been around for a year and a half, almost 2 years now. But so they're mainly working in the technical in the grip and electric departments. They're mainly working in crafts like props and makeup and things like that. But the plan is to grow it out from that point. You may not ever want. I was never a production assistant. So I knew that I wanted to be producing and working in that way. So that's how I sort of drove my career. But at the same time, if you are wanting to get into the industry, the basic salary, average salary of the technical guys in the state of Georgia that are working regularly on that are working regularly on movies is $84,000 a year. Not a bad income just to move from one movie to the next and keep working. So we love this workforce that we've developed, and that's why fewer and fewer movies are bringing lots of people from LA, because we now have a trained workforce that we can put Georgians to work. They're locals, so you don't have to pay to fly them here or pay them per diems. They're Georgians, and that whole huge body of workforce is doing a great thing to put why Georgia has one of the best economies in the country.
Yeah, it's interesting because it was a very kind of like frustrating experience to go through these classes and get your chops and learn how to operate and edit and post produce and we would always talk to our professors, or we would do our internships, and then towards the end we'd always have those questions like, so what's next? And it was kind of like a interesting, like weird, like exclusive, like
Sure.
brotherhood in the industry or any industry. It's kind of like you know, I had a hard time getting in, so you have to have the same
hard time.
getting
Yeah,
in. So
that's
it's
what
like,
makes us
I
brothers.
can't, yeah, and I can't look out for you because then I got to look out for these 20 other students.
Yeah.
And I can't help you out because then I got to help everybody else out. So it's been interesting, but it's also helped, I realize, a lot too in other lanes, because like now me and a few other friends were able to use those creative skills for film in other lanes, like marketing, for instance. Now,
Exactly.
that was how I got a lot of work my first year out of school. I would realizing that I was having a hard time getting on these feature film projects, you know, I would reach out to other companies that had a website that didn't have a video or had
Sure.
a lack of like a social presence, and I'm like, well, I know how to make a video. I can write a 2-minute script. I can write a 1-minute script.
Exactly.
Y'all are the actors, you know, as long as I know your mission statement, your branding, like I can make you a video.
Sure.
So it's really just being creative and learning how to use those skills you've learned to make money in the moment,
See,
I think too.
I will say, that's exactly my story. I mean, I've made a living doing it that way for 32 years, you know, and now, gee, I got the bonus of being in the entertainment business.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't around then, but in this last almost 10 years now, it's developed to a point where there are enough people making movies that you can get, you know, through the wall.
Definitely.
You know? Yeah, that's good.
Craig, what are those movies that you're working on that are from Craig Miller Productions? Are you at liberty to say?
Not at liberty to say yet, because we're still at the final stages of. Here's the rule about making a movie. If somebody says they're making a movie, the next question is, do you have the money to make the movie yet? Because you're not making a movie until somebody, either yourself or an investor, has put the money in your bank account to make the movie. So we are right at that stage. We do have a really nice project that we closed the deal on.
Right.
It's with a young director named Takashi Dosher. I hired him for his first job out of college, and he remembered me because I love to interview people. I love to, if you take 20 minutes to come see me, I'll sit down and talk to you for 20 minutes and tell you about the industry. I love doing that. And I did that with Takashi, and he remembered, and we stayed in touch. And so 10 years after he graduated from the University of Florida, he came back in town and said, I'm making a movie. Do you want to be a producer on the movie? I said, I sure do. So that movie's called, the movie that we did last year is called Still, S-T-I-L-L. It will finish all of its post-production in the next 3 weeks. It's a piece to establish Takashi as a director. So it'll do the festival route. Yeah, we're going to sell it and try to make some money on it that way as too in the European markets and in the domestic market. But I think it's a really good project. It was really well done. It was really well shot by director of photography Philip Wages. It was his first feature too. It was an ultra low budget, but it was a great piece of work.
But that's how it is.
Yeah,
That's how it is.
And we had 3 really good leads that had credits in Orange is the New Black and Star Trek Beyond and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, people that I think someday are going to have big time credits. But it was great to have their professional acting ability on our show. The shoot that we're doing. It starts prep in August and we're shooting in September, is a movie called Only. And Only is a sort of a sci-fi kind of movie about the last woman on Earth. And it's pretty interesting. So Takashi wrote it and he's going to be directing it, and I'm excited about that.
She's probably happy she doesn't have to deal with any men. You know, they're just all gone. It doesn't have to.
Oh no, the men are still around. That's the problem.
Oh man,
it's about the last woman on Earth.
Oh golly, that sounds like a horror movie. Man,
Well, it has some tinges of that as well.
Wow.
So and then we've got the pilot that we shot, which is a TV show called Hear Us. Is about 3 child prodigies, musicians that come together over the internet to make music, and their backgrounds are all very interesting and different. One's in the pianist is a Syrian refugee who's in Germany. The violinist is a 15-year-old girl who plays $15 million Stradivariuses in Italy, and we have a cellist who is whose father is one of the like top 5 violinists in the world, and he inherited his father's wonderful musical abilities, and he's in Cleveland, Ohio, at the Cleveland Institute of Music, and the three of them got together and they've created music, and they're coming together. They've come together over the internet, but they're actually going to meet in future episodes to play music at different venues, like hopefully Carnegie Hall. So it's a pretty nice little piece.
Because a great idea for a story doesn't have to involve a $6 million special effects shot, does it? You can tell a great story. I remember Harvey Weinstein, right? Miramax Films. I remember a great quote from him where he said, and this was back when Miramax was not doing big special effects movies. They've evolved since then, but he said words are special effects. You know, and that's true.
Yeah.
I remember a mutual friend of yours and mine. It was talking about making independent films years ago, and he said, one money-saving tip if you're a talented up-and-coming director is to do, and I don't know if this is still true, Craig, but do horror movies or do a horror film.
Oh no, you're guaranteed to make money doing a horror movie.
And they're not. And if you're a gifted director, if you've got a great eye, you won't necessarily spend a lot of money. Am I right about this? I've never talked to you about this, but that seems to make sense to me.
Lots of people their first movie will be a horror film, because horror films tend to do well in the marketplace and have an audience, have a niche, and you can make them relatively inexpensive. Alfred Hitchcock made a career of never showing the horror,
right?
But it was just implying the horror that scared the crap out of everybody.
Right.
So
that's what made Jaws so good.
Yeah.
What I heard about Jaws is that the mechanical shark failed so much in production, and when Steven Spielberg was done, he was really insecure about what he had in the can or what he had left.
Yeah.
So he was like, "Oh crap, this movie's this is gonna suck, and I'm gonna have to really lean on my music guy, and we're gonna have to somehow tell this story without showing the shark." And guess what? It became this huge thing. Yeah.
The Blair Witch Project.
Oh, yeah.
There you go again.
So cheap. And what was that other movie with? Saw was cheap, but no, there was another movie. It was one of the best-selling horror movies. I totally forgot the name of it.
The Purge?
Sorry? The Purge also. There's a bunch.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Get Out was cheap.
Yeah, well, Get Out. It's a great
man.
example. It's a really good movie, suspenseful.
Or I saw a film. It wasn't a horror movie, but it was kind of like a fantasy romantic. It starred the actress that is in Mad Men. I'm terrible with these names, but basically it's a movie where she and another actor were in a house, but then they ran into some alternate reality where there were other versions of themselves, and it was gripping. 2 hours, you're just like, what is happening? And then when it was over, I was like, man, that was 2 actors and a house,
Right.
and that's it,
Right.
So it doesn't. And I guess what I'm thinking, and I struggle with this as a creative sometimes. My wife and I often talk about this. Our debate is what has to come first, the money or the idea? And I see movies like that, and I think the idea had to be there. The money will follow.
Yeah, I would tell you the idea comes first. Yeah.
So the Blair Witch Project grossed $140 million, and what was it? The Paranormal Activity.
There you go.
Paranormal Activity. That was done such low budget, and it looks like it grossed about $108 million.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not bad.
Well.
So yeah.
Yeah, and that's the key. I mean, it was sort of interesting recently. We now that we've done a movie and a TV pilot, then more and more people come to you with their ideas because they figure you can help them get them done. But it's like, you got to take into consideration, maybe you got a great idea, but can you get that idea scaled down to, we were able to do our movie that we did because our location was a farm with a creek and a lake and a log cabin, okay? That was what we needed to make the film work, okay? We could find that,
Right, that's possible.
Yeah, but we had somebody recently come to us with 29 talents and 13 locations, and we said, you don't have enough money to get this done. I mean, yeah, you could shoot it on your phone, and maybe that might be part of the deal that you're going to make happen, but that you're not thinking scale. You've got to make it come in.
Just curious, something with 29 talents and 13 locations. What price range? How much would that cost?
we budgeted. We did an actual budget on this film to try to get it down to where it was producible, we could get it down to just under $500,000 if they were willing to make some concessions. The gut reaction, the gut check kind of number that we came up with was to really do it right with a few talents that make some sense and bring something to the show, probably $1.3 million. That's still a very low budget movie, but you know, $1 million is $1 million. If you got it, you got it. If you don't, you don't. You know, so something's got to shift if you're going to make, you know, a low budget movie and you have tons of characters in it. You better have some really talented relatives, you know, that want to work for nothing. You know,
Right. That's very cool. What else? We got you here. You're sitting here. Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on our show. This is so cool.
It's been a real honor. I appreciate it.
You have put so much sort of meat on the bone for, I think, a lot of us. Everybody knows that the film industry is booming, but I think a lot of people, even creative people, deep down inside, they're thinking, well, how can I get into that? What's in this for me? And I think you've answered those questions, and I thank you so much.
Well, and I think the other thing that's kind of interesting is that we had to start where our crew base was really strong, and our crew base was really strong in two areas, Savannah and Atlanta. We have people that know how to make movies in those areas. In the years that have passed between the incentive coming on, you know, being passed and going into effect, we have worked really hard to try to spread it out to more of Georgia. And that besides educating and bringing up a next generation of people that want to make movies, our goal is to spread it throughout the state. We have 159 counties in the state of Georgia. I think right now we've done 70 of those counties have seen some kind of production. But there are a lot of counties, you know, but we are trying desperately to reach out to more counties, to more different areas around the state, to employ more Georgians and to get people there. And for a while, we're probably going to need to take a bus to get crews there to make that work, you know. But that's part of the industry, and that's part of the growth. And as more and more people learn how to do the craft of making movies, more and more Georgians will be employed.
I'm curious too about the profit that comes out of movies nowadays, because I know, like, with the music industry,
sure,
they've kind of been acting like streaming has ruined everything and it's messed up true sales. So how does that compare to how now movies are being streamed rather than done at the box office? Because I know nowadays, and it's always been kind of the selling point for movies now, rather than actual quality, it's like it did X $100 million at the box office, and now fewer people. I know for me, I may go to the movies 3 times a year, because you're going to spend at least $20 a ticket with everything considered. Now that you can watch a movie on Netflix or like Amazon or Google Play, how much profit do you actually generate through the streaming compared to traditional sales of like box office tickets?
I think it is like the music industry in that they've had to reinvent the way they think of making money. Okay, I see more and more activity in what we used to call the second monitor. You know, whether it would be your phone or your iPad or your, you know, something besides the TV set that you're watching at home. I think face it, nobody's written DVDs anymore. Blockbuster would still be around. I mean, so, you know, Redbox is doing about the only DVD business I know. So it's constantly changing. What helps the filmmaker like myself is that there's so many vehicles out there where you could sell your project or be paid to make that particular, to produce that project. I would say they're doing a pretty good job right now, but it's still developing. 450 movies in the first part of last year, or TV series, were, you know, created. They weren't created because nobody wanted to watch them, you know. But just like music, it's getting niched. It's going to be, can I make a movie that works for people that are trying to reach, for advertisers that are trying to reach certain audiences? Because, you know, it used to be, well, we'll put up something when we hope most of the country watches it. it's not about that anymore. It's about, do I have a black urban audience that wants to watch this particular show about these particular people? Do I have an Asian audience that has a need to see? Do I have a young audience that is looking for this kind of programming? So you got to make sure that there's enough audience in the niche to make it all work. And I think they're still struggling with, how do I monetize these smaller markets to bring them together and make them work.
And Craig, does it still work sort of like the music business, where if I am a filmmaker, I can shoot a pilot and that's my demo?
TV shows work different than movies. What everybody's trying to do is mitigate risk. So on a TV show, what you care about is the showrunner, the producer that's in charge of everything. You're going to risk your money on a really good showrunner, okay, who in turn has been brought a really good idea to produce. And generally, what you're going to do is produce a sizzle reel of that particular show for the showrunner to then take and market to the people that he's done business with over the years.
J.J. Abrams started as a showrunner, I think.
And what you do in the movies is different. You might establish yourself through a festival. Lots of people think that's the way to do it, but the real connection, the real success, comes when you've got an idea that you market to, that you kind of test. You test your talent that you have that's attached to your project, being both on camera and behind the camera, against mainly international marketplace sales, and you sort of run a formula to see how well you project it's going to do. And you develop an investment kit, and you take that investment kit to different investors, and then you get them to fund your movie, to take the risk with you to fund the movie, and you produce something. Then you sort of have, I produced a movie. That was great. A, just accomplishing that gets you a checkpoint, but then B, then did it sell and make any money? And it's always better in the investment world that if you have a slate of films that you're producing, so if one of them tanks, great. It's like the other two, one of them did okay, and one of them did really well. You mitigate your risk by having more than one project.
Right, like a portfolio.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds a lot like raising money for a startup.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They look at the CEO, his track record. They look at the product you're trying to build. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's very similar.
Very good.
And that's why it's very interesting to me, because I remember in a class I was taking, media industries, they were talking about how gross ticket sales often mislead people as a marketing strategy. So it really surprised me that you actually, I believe, have to make 4 times the budget of the movie to cover everything, because if the movie's $100 million to make, the $100 million in tickets only covers those minimal costs, but it doesn't necessarily cost talent, the marketing budget, and all those things. So I guess with you talking about minimizing risk and actually making the money back, what percentage of movies actually get into that clear space of making that 4 times the budget back or being profitable, especially like a Netflix, where I'm seeing a TV show might be $5 million an episode to make, like a Game of Thrones or something. Sure. How do you translate that to eyeballs or like viewers or streams? Like, I feel like, is there a direct correlation between that? Like 10 million streams totals
certain amount of profit?
Yeah, like how do you gauge that?
I'll tell you, I'll just be honest. I don't know the answer to that question. The thing that I can tell you is I know that the return on investment is very important to, in that case, instead of having independent investors, you've got a company like Amazon or Netflix or something, wagering that they're going to do well on this particular project. But obviously they've got a whole network of projects out there. And if nobody's watching, the analytics are going to say nobody's watching. We need to move on to another project. Who's got another idea?
Yep. Sometimes value can mean different things to different people, different investors, even the viewer. Different things are taken into account when deciding if something was successful.
Well, and you look like a project like Nashville, the TV series. Now it's on CMT. Well, what could be a better network for CMT a better show for CMT to run than Nashville. I mean, so here is a show that got, discontinued by a major network, but picked up by one of the smaller market, and still producing new shows and syndicating. So they have a niche market.
Right. And there was some risk there, right? I think everybody in this room knows a little bit about taking risks.
Yep.
And seeing a return on that. Though every bet doesn't always work out, but when it goes big, it goes big. Craig, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks again to all my guests, Amir Harris, founder and CEO of Shofur, and Craig Miller, owner of Craig Miller Productions and chair of the Georgia Film, Music, and Digital Entertainment Advisory Commission. We'll be back in a few weeks with more news on transportation and technology. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Android, or other sites so you don't miss it. Thanks to Shofur for sponsoring this podcast. Shofur is the most trusted bus reservation service in North America. The company currently serves more than 100 cities nationwide and has logged more than 5 million miles with no accidents to help more than 1 million customers get from one place to another. Looking for your next transportation need to be fulfilled? Contact us today at 1-800-436-8719. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.